As many of you guys know, I'm a huge Mizzou football fan, and that is my day one school, so Jamison Williams has been a name I've been hearing about for a long time. I follow Mizzou recruiting really heavily, and Williams came out of Cardinal Ritter Prep, which is in St. Louis, and he was always a huge name on the recruiting scene, and Barry Odom could never land the kid, and he eventually would go to Ohio State. He was compared to Ted Ginn and was supposed to be the future of the Ohio State program, but with the recruiting that Brian Hartline has done, unfortunately, a guy as talented as him was starting to lose his place in the rotation, and he decided to transfer. Ohio State is a serious wide receiver problem, as they are actually so dang good that one of their bench wide receivers is now headed to Alabama. So yeah, the Crimson Tide landed Jameson Williams, a former borderline 5-star recruit from St. Louis, and a guy who did play a little bit the last 2 years at Ohio State. But Alabama is getting a gem in my opinion, and potentially another guy who could be a first-round pick down the line for the Tide. John Metchie is the big wide receiver name for the Tide in the 2021 season, and they needed some other guys to step up, and Jameson Williams should fit right in and be a starter. So yeah, Jameson Williams transferred to Alabama, and today we're going to talk about what he brings to the Tide's program, a little bit of a history lesson on what he did at Ohio State, and how Jameson became a big-time player to begin with in the high school world. But first, if you love constant college football content, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you want to support my channel so more people can see it. Suggest what topic I could do next, and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now let's get started and talk about Jameson Williams. So yeah, Jameson Williams grew up loving the game of football, and he'd eventually get the Cardinal Ritter Prep in St. Louis. The guy was such a competitor that during his junior season, when their punter went down, he could kick and punt enough that he actually took on that responsibility, and sometimes he'd even go for it, and he became a dual threat dude in the punting and kicking game. At the time, he was only 5'11" and barely 125 pounds, so when people said he became a big time recruit, some were skeptical. The guy would get killed in the college level, but he was spectacular. He eventually got up to 6'2" and nearly 200 pounds, so he was now seen as a top 100 recruit, and he's one of the best players in the state of Missouri. He broke some track records held by Ezekiel Elliott, so the guy had a ton of hype and a ton of promise. He had nearly 3,000 yards and 41 touchdowns through the air during his final 2 years of high school, and he ultimately became the number 87 overall player in the 2019 class. His high school coach liked to compare him to Ted Ginn, who, in case you didn't know, was a spectacular player at Ohio State and went on to have a pretty good NFL career. This was before he was ever getting recruited by the Buckeyes though, and he was a really fast player who turned heads every time he took the field. Eventually he was recruited by Brian Hartline at Ohio State and would choose to commit to the Buckeyes. Last year, Jameson Williams ended up catching 9 passes for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he played in 8 games last season. With the incredible amount of talent that Brian Hartline has brought in at wide receiver, some said that Jameson Williams would end up being the guy who would transfer away. Apparently his dad was not happy with how his son was being treated, and after a couple weird performances in the spring game and Jackson Smith and Jigba taking his spot, many believed that Williams would enter the transfer portal, and that's exactly what he would do. He was being recruited by schools such as Georgia, Missouri, and Alabama, but he ended up being chosen by the Alabama Crimson Tide. When Jameson was asked about his commitment to the Crimson Tide, he had this to say: "It's Bama because I felt the want and the need of my skill from Coach Nick Saban as he explained everything to me. And I also had a great relationship with Coach Wiggins from the previous years. He made it most definitely feel like a place that I could be." Throw in the fact that the Crimson Tide have seen 4 wide receivers selected in the first round of the draft over the last 2 years, there was plenty of intrigue when it came to Bama. This boosted the ego of Ohio State fans, as they said their second stringers were being recruited by the top SEC programs, but it is for good reason. Jameson Williams is an extremely fast player, a very talented player, and someone with a very high ceiling. Nick Saban expressed that he wanted more speed in his wide receiver core, and Jameson Williams will add a perfect complement to that. This is what Nick Saban had to say about the wide receiver core at Bama. Quote, "These guys all got to prove themselves. I think speed kills on the football field and on the highway. I love to have speed guys. We have some big guys, but we've got to get some speed guys too." Saban brings in Jameson, and the former high school track star set a Missouri State record in the 300-meter hurdles, which, as I said earlier, was held by former Ohio State running back Ezekiel Elliott. He also finished the runner-up to Georgia defensive back Keely Ringo in the fastest man competition during the 2018 Rivals 5-Star Challenge, so Jameson brings elite-level speed and athleticism, and that's something that Nick Saban would love to have, and he now has. I'm not hugely into scouting, but if you want to know what the scouts do have to say about Jameson Williams, I'll read you guys an article from 24/7 Sports and their profile on him. They said, quote, "He's wiry and skinny at the moment, and has solid height and length, but still needs to fill out his frame. He has exceptional explosiveness and speed, and he's one of the fastest players in the country with track times to back that up. He eats up cushion quickly and is fluid with his brakes. He can make cuts without needing to throttle down too much, and can take short passes and go the distance from anywhere on the field. He's also a dangerous return man. He still has to get stronger though, which will help his blocking improve and his ability to break tackles in the open field, but he does show balance and elusiveness in the open field as well. He's not just a straight line guy either. He projects as a kid who can go in the slot at times or play outside, but will be a playmaker and a scoring threat every time he touches the ball in college. He currently projects as a potential second-day draft choice, which is second or third round, but could go higher if he adds the necessary bulk and strength. At Ohio State, he averaged nearly 18 yards per reception, and the Alabama staff will do wonders with him. I do think he will step in and start immediately, as I think the top 3 receivers on this Bama team will be Williams, John Metchie, and Jaleel Billingsley. There are a ton of good freshmen with guys like JoJo Earle and Ajayi Hall, plus Trayshawn Holden, Xavier Williams, and Baker in the wide receiver room, so there'll be plenty of options for Nick Saban and the Alabama offensive staff to work with, and I'm really excited. Of course, as a Mizzou fan, I held out hope that maybe Jameson Williams would come to the Tigers, as recently, former top 100 Ohio State wide receiver Mookie Cooper entered the transfer portal and came back to Mizzou as well. But I wish Jameson the best of luck at Alabama, and I'm really excited to watch him play. I do really believe he will have a chance to start immediately, as the Alabama wide receiver room is pretty inexperienced, but at least Jameson's going to play right away, and this is a tough blow to Georgia, as they lost their star wide receiver George Pickens, and it seems that Jermaine Burton was injured as well, so they really needed a boost to that wide receiver core, as I do believe Georgia can get to the national championship this year, but that wide receiver spot's going to hurt them. What do you guys think though? Jameson Williams was a big time recruit coming out of high school and showed some definite flash at Ohio State, but things just were not meant for him to be there, and now he'll find his new spot in Alabama, which I would say is a pretty good backup option if you're a wide receiver, as they've been putting a ton of first round dudes into the league, and 4 in the last 2 drafts combined. I'm really excited for this, and if you're an Ohio State fan, let me know what you think of your wide receiver core, and if you're an Alabama fan, let me know what you think Jameson brings to the table and how he will do. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you love all college football content, suggest another topic I could do next, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about Ohio State's wide receivers. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.